The risk of travel almost 2 years into COVID keeps changing. Just as countries started opening borders to international travelers, a new coronavirus strain has triggered a whole new set of travel restrictions. Clint Henderson is senior news editor with The Points Guy and is here now to help us navigate these changes and provide us some tips for those who are planning to venture away from home, whether near or far. Clint, welcome back to Quicktake. You have done a fantastic job compiling a very handy 70,000-word guide on thepointsguy.com, laying out the maze of rules that travelers have to negotiate before setting off. But let's just take a step back here and start at the beginning. Assume that I have not set foot on a plane since March 2020. Where do I start? What do I need? How much more expensive should I expect my trip to be?
So if you're traveling internationally, is where it gets complicated. So say you haven't taken any flights at all, if you're flying domestically, there's really nothing to worry about. Hawaii is the one exception to that. So they have some special rules. But other than that, domestic travel, you're good to go pretty much. International travel gets really tricky. So you now need a negative COVID test within 1 day of your flight to return to the United States. Now, that used to be 3 days if you were vaccinated. That has gone away as Omicron has spread and governments have sort of panicked about this new variant. They've tightened restrictions even further. So you need a COVID test within 1 day of your departure back to the United States. Now, that's not 24 hours, so you have a full day before your trip to get that test. So it's not the end of the world. Most resorts, most hotels around the world are now very aware of the rules. They will help you. They will guide you. They'll tell you where to get tested. You can have testing people come to your hotel room. There are some resorts that have testing centers on property. So I have traveled some internationally the past couple months. It gets complicated, but once you sort of know the basics, you'll generally be okay.
Okay, got it. So you'll need to get tested before you leave. You might need to get tested when you arrive as well. That being the case, everyone getting tested before they leave, potentially once they arrive, does being vaccinated matter at this point at all? If everyone needs to get tested one way or another?
So at the Points Guy, we say everyone should get tested. Everyone should get boosters where available, because that's the only way we're going to get this virus in check. But I will say that it depends on the country. So if you're vaccinated, some countries are throwing open their arms and they say, come on in, but the rules are changing day to day. And that's why keeping up with every country's requirement has been such a beast to do on the site, but we do update that every week. So if you are curious about a specific country, you can go to the Points Guy, search for our country by country guide, and we have every single country laid out for you. Colombia was one example where they made it so easy for vaccinated Americans to come. Now they've suddenly changed what they're requiring, and they're going to require a test even if you're vaccinated. So it gets complicated, but there are sites, there are sources for you to keep up with those changing rules.
Okay, so it's a very fluid situation. I just wonder how much coordination there is at the top of the government. And here I'm talking about each country. For instance, the Philippines Tourism Board recently made an online video basically embracing COVID and all the safety protocols they put in place. Just letting people know, tourists know, that they've got it covered and that if you come, you'll be in good shape, you'll be in good hands because we know what we need to do to keep you safe. They kind of call this the new normal. How effective is this kind of advertising? Does this put people's minds at ease and encourage tourism to a place like the Philippines?
I think it does. I think, some countries have been better than others at sort of like rolling out the red carpet and saying, we got your back, we're going to take care of you. God forbid you test positive while you're here. We're going to put you up in a hotel and we're going to pay for it. Other countries are like basically saying to travelers, you're on your own. I think the general advice is pick a country where you are pretty sure that you're going to be taken care of once you get there. Mexico has been great. It's been sort of the Wild West, very few rules, but at the same time, all the resorts in Cancun have testing sites available. So those resorts, if you get an all-inclusive resort in places like Mexico, that the hotel is going to make sure you have what you need to get back home. I will say the airlines have gotten really good since they've been the enforcers. The airlines are now rolling out apps of their own to help you do a checklist before you leave. And make sure you have all your documents uploaded. So I imagine things will get easier as we go through the pandemic. We've had 2 years. It's still a little catch as catch can can, but I think it is getting better.
Well, airlines are being really good about it because they want your business, and in many cases, they want someone else's business as well. United and Delta, for instance, were still flying to South Africa when Omicron was when it first happened, and they were basically taking away business from the European carriers and the Gulf carriers. My producer was saying that people were flying from Cape Town to London via Newark because there was no other flight available. They just couldn't get to where they wanted to go otherwise. How much do you see that as the airlines just trying to siphon customers off each other?
Yeah, I mean, it's smart. If you're an airline, you want to be ultra competitive. When it comes to COVID safety, though, I think most airlines are being extremely cautious. I think as the weeks have gone on since we first discovered Omicron, it's not quite as big a threat as we had first supposed. So I think it ended up being a smart strategy on the part of Delta and United to keep those flights going. But remember, if you're an American, you're going to be able to get home. America is not telling American citizens they can't come home. There's just added hoops you have to jump through at this point.
Got it. What are you seeing when it comes to people and their holiday travel plans? Because Omicron began spreading right as people were gearing up for their holiday travel plans. Do you see people changing perhaps what was going to be a long haul trip to something closer and, maybe near home?
Yes, absolutely. So we've seen anecdotal evidence of people canceling international trips and saying, you know what, I'm just going to go to Charleston because I want to stay closer to home. I don't want to risk being stuck overseas. The risk doesn't seem to be as extreme as we thought a couple of weeks ago. So I'm not sure how long that dip in traffic, but the airlines did say they saw a decline in bookings, especially for international flights. We also saw search volume drop for international bookings. So domestically, it does not seem to be having much of an impact. But I think, international travel was already struggling. Around 30% is all it's recovered so far since before the pandemic. And this is not going to help international travel, that's for sure.
No, it certainly doesn't. Let's just say that you did have plans, flight plans, and you wanted to change them. Are the airlines still being fairly flexible and understanding when it comes to rescheduling? Are they charging you? Are they nickel and diming you for change fees and all of that?
So we've seen a revolution in how airlines are treating leisure travelers. Leisure travelers are in the driver's seat for the most part and have been since the pandemic started. Airlines have thrown out change fees. They've a lot of times will give you a refund, maybe not cash anymore like they were doing in the height of the pandemic, but they will give you a voucher for future travel. So you can book with more confidence now, so that even if a catastrophe happens and you need to change or cancel that booking, the airlines are being much more flexible. And I say to people all the time, call the airlines, just work with them, tell them your situation, tell them you're uncomfortable flying. You might even be able to get a full cash refund, even though that's not policy.
But you can't even get through to the airline. I mean, if you try calling them, you're on hold for 5 hours.
Well, sometimes hold times have been bad because they don't have enough workers, but it's gotten better. And Delta and other airlines now have automated systems that will call you back, so you don't have to sit there on hold. But yeah, you're right. During peak times, if there's any kind of weather issue or there's a sort of service outage, then you can expect extremely long hold times. Here's another trick for you: try using Twitter direct messenger. That works wonders. American Airlines is excellent at responding. Alaska Airlines is excellent at responding via Twitter direct message. So try that trick. And some of the airlines are even doing direct texting now. So there is workarounds out there. Go to the Points Guy. We've got all the hacks for you there.
Great tips. Okay, so once the year-end holiday season passes, you kind of have a quiet period for a while, and then things start up again because a lot of people travel during February when some schools are out and people want to get away to somewhere warmer. What warm locales are most inviting right now in terms of there aren't a lot of restrictions, it's low maintenance in terms of getting there and staying there and being safe?
So a lot of Americans are obviously choosing Florida. We have, in fact, see more traffic to Florida now than we did pre-pandemic, which is remarkable. You think about it. Spirit is adding flights. Allegiant's adding flights, American, Delta, everyone's going to Florida now. So you're seeing Florida being very popular with Americans, but also Mexico. Cancun, I think, is like one of the top 5 cities in the world now for foreign visitors, because Mexico has made it fairly easy to visit. So I would say Mexico, Florida, and lots of places in the Caribbean have rolled out the red carpet and are making it easier for Americans to visit. We expect those trends to continue through the winter and into 2022.
Got it. Okay, Clint, last word for you here. What is the number one tip you have for people who are getting ready to travel for the holiday season but haven't yet made their plans?
So one of my favorite tricks is pack your patience. That's number one. We always say at the Points Guy, but also get Clear or TSA PreCheck to speed you through the lines. A lot of credit cards give it to you free when you sign up for the credit card, and it has saved me so much time. It also prevents me from having to deal with huge crowds at TSA lines. So that's my number one hack.
Fantastic. Clint, really appreciate your joining us. Clint Henderson is Senior News Editor at The Points Guy. Thank you so much.